Today in the United States, you can find kosher supervision not only on thousands of products, but literally on tens and tens of thousands of products. This was not the case when I was growing up in the 1950s. In those days, if you kept kosher, and I come from a religious family, you were very punctilious about making sure that you only bought your meat from a store that had hashgacha under rabbinical supervision. By and large, when it came to dairy products, you'd go into a supermarket and you would check the ingredients. My friend Dennis Prager, who grew up near me in Brooklyn, said when I was 6 years old, the first words I learned to read in English were pure vegetable shortening only. He said it was not a bad lesson to learn at the age of 6 that I couldn't have every candy bar in the candy store. That's just one example of an ethical lesson that the laws of Kosher teach us. It teaches us a type of self-control. I'll go on and I'll speak about another one. Most Americans are concerned about dieting. The truth of the matter is a large number of us are overweight. And when I'll speak to an audience, I'll say, how many of you at some point in the last 5 years have gone on a diet? And the truth of the matter is the majority of people will raise their hands. I'll say, how many of you never diet? And a small minority will raise their hands. And I always say, you're the people who caused me to violate the 10th commandment against coveting. I don't covet you your house. I don't covet you your spouse. I covet you your ability to eat all the Haagen-Dazs or all the ice creams that you want without having to worry about it. But what's fascinating, even in the level of dieting, is this. Ask people what the word mitzvah means, and people who know Hebrew will say commandment. People who know the word mitzvah, but in a general sense, will usually give it a Yiddish connotation where it often means good deed. The difference between commandment and good deed, though subtle, is significant. Commandment implies something obligatory, good deed implies something voluntary, and most of us assume that an act done out of a spirit of voluntarism should be regarded as being on a higher ethical plane than an act done because you feel commanded. On the other hand, the prevailing sentiment in the Talmud is Gadol ha-mitzuvah v'oseh mi-she'eino mitzuvah v'oseh. Greater is the one who is obligated to do something and who does it than one who is not obligated. What was the reasoning of the rabbi who said that? Well, maybe he felt if you're doing it because you want to do it anyway, it's not as great as you're doing it because God wants you to do it. I think the real reason is because when you feel obligated, you do it with greater consistency. So let me compare two types of diets. As I said, the average American worries about dieting. But when I ask people, how many of you who've dieted within the last 10 years have ever gone 3 months or longer without breaking your diet once? Maybe one person out of 20 or 30 will raise their hand. How many of you broke your diet inside of 3 weeks? A very large percentage. And I joke with people inside of 3 hours. Many of us do. Compare that with the diet known as kashrut. Kashrut does not yield any physical benefits that we know of. I've never seen somebody who looked great. I hadn't seen in a long time. I said, you look great. You must have lost 30 pounds. What are you doing different? I started keeping kosher. Truth is, the kosher diet is filled with foods like challah and cholent, foods that put on weight. But unlike the regular diet, which is undertaken as a voluntary act, the people who keep kosher feel commanded to do so. And because they feel commanded, they can go for years, they can go a lifetime without eating foods that are forbidden. If I was at a bar bat mitzvah and about to take a piece of chocolate cake and suddenly someone rushed over and said, Joseph, don't eat the cake, you'll look better, you'll feel better, the whole time I'll be thinking, when is this nudnik going to go away so that I can eat this cake? But if somebody rushed over and said, Joseph, don't eat the cake, while they were preparing it, some pork fell into the mix, I'd throw it away in hara. I have a theory. If the American government would mandate they had to put pork into chocolate products, I could lose 30 pounds. That's my point. The fact that we feel commanded can sometimes actually make it easier for us to do the right thing and certainly to do so consistently.